it's a warning song.
Okay, we're gonna be that. Well, guys, we are at the home of Timuel Black, who is a longtime buddy of my friend.
That's right.
My grandfather.
Grandfather.
My grandfather, Carl Cotton, who was the first.
From about, we can name a time, from about second or third grade at Burke Elementary School.
Burke.
All the way through life.
Wow. Wow.
We were in contact. Now, he was with the talented, artistic group. Charles White and all that group that you may have heard.
Yeah. So.
And,
Yeah.
but our relationship, he lived in Gary for a while, didn't he?
Yeah, he lived in Gary.
Yeah, we were partners in Gary.
Oh, really?
Gary, yeah. Then I think he moved to Lake Meadows to be closer to, you know, but you know the story that you.
Lake Meadows is when
young people.
Okay, my mother, Bonnie Harper, was his oldest daughter, and he had, I think it's 4 daughters, 1 son, 5 daughters, 1 son. He had a few, and he had 1 son named Carl Jr. Carl passed in the last 10 years. But anyway, well, we're curious to find out, like, the first time you met him, you guys were in what, 2nd, 3rd grade?
Oh yeah, we were both. That was a story about the breakthrough of blacks moving across what was then called Grand Boulevard, South Park. And a few of us, young people, our parents wanted us to go to a school that was not crowded, and at the same time it was academically encouraging. And that's the story of my memory.
So when you and Carl were little, number one, the way you guys dressed was a lot better than the way these young people dress, right? Nowadays, I mean, because I noticed different things. You know, they dress like sometimes suits and you know, neckties or whatever. You know, it was a lot better than, you guys didn't have your pants hanging down, you know, what they do now, the sag and all of that kind of stuff.
Let's see, Charles lived at 53rd and Prairie, I believe. That was a nice, the whole neighborhood was nice.
Right.
We were just overcrowded. And when we graduated from elementary school, your granddad I went to Inglewood, but Inglewood was so prejudiced that I got in trouble and forged my mama's name and went to Phillips, but we continued to be friendly, you know, and see each other because we lived in the same neighborhood.
When he was young, did he have any indications that he was going to go into the taxidermy business? You know, like I imagine him finding rats and stuff in the street and taking them home, or he had that kind of love for that, or what? Do you remember?
What I remember is those talented young people began to have encouragers from the professional area. And I do remember him being contacted by the museum while we were still in elementary school.
Really? Wow. Wow.
Because he was, what do you call it?
A taxidermist.
Yeah. And they wanted their visitors to see this talented young man who knew about stuff. Because in the house, he had examples of his, what do you call it now?
His work, his animals and stuff.
Yeah.
Like when he was over in Lake Park, I was like about 12 years old. This is shortly before he passed. And his house was set up like yours, but in the back room was his workshop, or what we call it, his laboratory. You know.
He was devoted early, and he was encouraged early by our teachers.
Wow.
Art was a part of those who had that. I'm not trying to think some names now. Bill Green and Shaw. They were selected to concentrate on their talent, at the same time get the academic work that was necessary to move on.
Mm-hmm.
And they did.
Mm-hmm. And it's amazing then, because I don't think, I mean, how many programs back then were even thinking about that, that were for black people, and I was just impressed that he pursued this. After I think the first time he contacted the museum, they turned him down, and he went away to the Navy, and
the old man's ears not what it used to be.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah, he went to the Navy. The first time he applied at the museum, they turned him down, and then he had to go. He went to the Navy and got, I guess, I don't know, a GI Bill or something, and he came back, and then they let him in there.
Yeah.
But what did you guys do for fun back then and there? I mean, the games and stuff that you guys would play. Did you guys play a lot? And
we were. It's hard for you younger people to. We were all that talent, older and younger, was concentrated in the ghetto.
Mm.
And so people like, I'm trying to think of the museum that's, all of those young people, they hung out together, but then they were inspired by people like Paul Robeson and Langston Hughes, those talented older people who would come to the South Side because they could play on the South Side. Louis Armstrong, and they could play on us downtown, but they couldn't stay.
Yeah, I mean, they said King Drive was like Broadway, and you could see Josephine Baker come up with. She had tigers coming out of her limousine.
We had a called Washington Park Terrace, or Washington Park Forum, and that was right in front of the elementary school, Edmund Burke Elementary School, and we were taught something about Edmund Burke, who was a French, an English anti-slavery. And we were taught that history, and those people like Margaret Burroughs and your grandfather, they hung out together when their older, inspirational guiders were not even around.
I mean, and they were great. I mean,
they were great.
Gwendolyn Brooks and
you name it.
Legs of Hughes, and they would all get together and have parties and hang out like we do sometimes. But it was great, and that history doesn't get talked about that much. You know, anything.
You see, and dumb old people like young dumb friends like were welcome to participate.
Right. So did you guys? I mean, you and Carl, did you guys pursue women, or were you chasing the girls, or were you more into your studies and stuff?
Well, in elementary school we were just friends, but later we didn't chase them.
They just came to you.
We met with them.
Okay.
We were friends,
Yeah.
and the younger females were honored to be with a male,
Okay.
and that had the talent so they could brag. So throughout our elementary, we were good friends, and then in high school, it turned from good friends to lovers.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And that continued throughout time. World War II comes, and all of us were drafted. I don't know whether your granddad was drafted or whether he was a participant in the 8th Regiment Armory, or with the Tuskegee Army. But he was one of those talented people who were used for those of us who are on the front line to make us feel better about being, although they were also in the army, they would either volunteered or drafted. I don't remember now what your granddad's operation, but they were part of the encouragement entertainment, and they were very important.
The museum finally they didn't know that they were looking for somebody to represent during Black History Month, and they didn't know that they had anybody black that had put in that much time at the museum. And then they discovered, oh, Carl Cotton. And
that's right.
As a child, I knew it all the time, and I would tell people all the time, my grandfather was this. So I had the ambition to contact the museum and say, is there a way that you can honor Carl's family? So last year they came out and they honored him.
I think the main thing about what you just said is to let them, younger people particularly, know on the positive side that a change is going to come and the door is going to open. Be prepared to walk in. And your granddad is a glaring example of being prepared through his talent to walk in and be revered. Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Oh, yeah.
See, I'm not an artist.
Okay.
But I was a teacher. And I used that history, personal, to help my students be prepared when the door is going to open. And we can transfer that all the way to not using art, although that was a part of it, the first president of the United States.
Yes, sir.
Now, his father-in-law was younger, but he grew up in the same neighborhood.
Harvey Walden, right?
Huh?
You talking about Harvey Walden?
Yeah.
Yes. Grand Memorial over here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I knew about him too. Yeah. Yeah.
And our ministers embraced, what was it called? The NRA, the NYA, National Youth Association, during during the period of the Great Depression. And that's when your granddad and people like him were used to inspire and inform us less talented younger people. They were activists because they brought into the situation a talent that was informational and inspiring.
Yeah, I mean, we are so proud of him, and like I said, I had the museum finally. Well, his exhibit is up. I don't know if you get a chance to get over there.
Now,
but
you were, no, you were not born even when you were living in Gary.
No, my time with him was when he was living in Lake Meadows. You know, my mother
He was Lake Meadows.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
But then, you know, he divorced my mother's mother. So, but, you know, my mother kept up with her father. So Lake Meadows is when he took me fishing. He was a fisherman, quite a fisherman.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so one of the few opportunities we got a chance to go fishing a couple of times.
That's right.
And that was really, really good. But I remember spending a lot of time in his apartment with all the animals in the back, and just marveled at that and scared to touch some. I guess he had did a bearskin rug, and they sent it to the Playboy Club. You know, where you had Hugh Hefner and Cosby and all of these people that are in the news now. You know, and so forth like that.
Your memory brings back my memory. Wish I could recall it. That's right. What you just said is...
Yeah. Well, you know, we was talking about, and not get off subject, but we was talking about Bill Cosby. Do you have any comments on Bill Cosby and his life? You know, they let him out of jail the other day.
Yeah.
And but people are not happy with that, and some people are, some people are not. But you kind of lived through all of that time. I tell my wife that Bill, I'm not saying he's innocent or guilty, but he was following suit along with Hugh Hefner and everybody else that went to the Playboy Club. That's just what they did back then. You know, and I don't know if he did any more or any less, but he was just ended up getting accounted for, accosted for it, and had to answer to it. Where Hugh Hefner probably did all of that, and you know, nothing ever happened to him.
Yeah.
But you know, I think that a lot of that.
Well, we, you know, without vulgarizing females, and then I kind of know what usually happened. I was a pretty good basketball player.
Okay.
And when I would finish the game, the pretty girls were outside waiting.
Okay.
So I didn't have to chase after the big.
You didn't have to chase them, huh?
This was pretty typical
Okay.
of the relationship between young women and artists
Yeah.
of that period, artists and athletes and all.
Plus, you're a good-looking man. I'm looking at you now, and I'm like, how old is he?
That's right.
About 70? You look great. You know, but you know, what I'm trying to do is we decided the best way is to do a children's book. My wife here is an author. She writes, and
Okay.
I'm not much of a writer, but I like to,
Well, that's all part of
you know, get it down and just write it down. She can organize it for me. And but we wanted to do a children's book for the young people because they have no idea what taxidermy was about and still don't know. And I don't know if any young kids out there in school that actually, you know, want to study that field, which is a great opportunity because there's probably one or two. And if they see somebody that looks like them, you know, they may be able to do that. Also, I want
Well,
go ahead.
what your granddad and others of that period was to use their inspirational talent to prove that the impossible is possible. Again, be prepared. The door is going to open. Now that's the subtlety of what your granddad and others of that period, of my period, we were inspired by how our talented friends were treated and how by the other group, by the Caucasians, and the exemplified by people like Paul Robeson and others of that period who had broken the barriers of segregation because of the talent. Now, your granddad was one of those younger people, and we can say Margaret Burroughs. We can go on and on. That's the idea that I used when I was teaching, white and black. It didn't matter. I could use those examples which could not be contradicted as breaking the barriers with their talent of segregation.
You know, I often wonder, and this is probably a little
Am
odd.
I informing this beautiful young lady, your wife?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, you have some questions too. You can, you know.
Yes, I was just wondering when Mr. Cotton when he was a kid, did he show other children things that he could do so far as, did he do any stuffing of the animals or things that he found when he was a kid and showed other children when you guys were younger?
When we were young?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, we used to go by the house to see. We'd joke and say that cat. He not go stop by.
Carl's out.
Carl's out.
He ain't gonna make it.
Because in the house, while we were elementary and high school was a beautiful display of various animals that had perished, had been stuffed by a car.
I'm surprised.
As a child.
I'm surprised his mom let him keep that stuff in the house. You know.
Well, she did.
Yeah. Wow.
Because, and again, because you can use Tim Black as a person who lived in that period, and his front room and dining room were like, you know, they were.
It's full of stuff.
Yeah. So you came in and knowing that, ooh, he did that? The animal would be stuffed so well that you wondered when he or she was going to be running.
Wow.
That's how good he was in those early days.
Wow.
Now I'm not talking about what I heard. I'm talking about what I observed. Because he would invite us to come what he did. But I'm trying to think of other talented people who, when you get to be 102 in 7 months, you remember it isn't what it was when you were here.
I know.
But it was a fun place. It was not just, it was fun. So we would go there as teenagers and even before, to have fun and talk about his work. And I'm trying to think of other artists, writers, and others that Bill Green and they were talented even in elementary school, and they moved on. Bill Green, who wound up going to Phillips because his family, and that's another geographical thing, his granddad owned one of those big mansions down near Wendell Phillips, and so he wound up going to Phillips. We were so inspired by the success that those of us who had less artistic talent did our work in the, what we might call the academic, intellectual world. And his work, just using him as an, was part of the inspiration of a unique young person who, wherever he got the inspiration or the example, did such an unusual job. That was unthinkable.
Yeah, yes. I get it. Who else would think about it? And I don't know. I'm sure there was black taxidermists after him, and even now, but to do the research, and that was one of the things that I'm glad that the museum finally got it.
Yeah, well, I'll share this. I'm not claiming to have all the details at 102 when you get to be there. I used to be your age. You said the old man told me that our generation inspired the talents of the people like Margaret Burrs and Carl, and I'm trying to think of
Langston Hughes.
That was part of the examples, and they didn't have to be doing what they were doing, but they used their talent to make a difference in the society, in the belief.
Especially somebody like Langston Hughes. I didn't know of his preferences until after I had seen his work. And to be a poet and coming up in this time and doing all of this writing and still have people scandalize you because you're black, and then he had another thing going, you know, because he was a little, you know, LGBT or whatever you want to call that. So, and a lot of kids don't know that. So that's inspiring for new kids now that are writers, that are black, that are gay, or whatever. So from the time you was born, so you've actually experienced, is it 2 pandemics? So the first one, you know, where they had to wear the mask, 1919. When were you born?
We, at that point, we all took vaccinations.
Mm-hmm.
We couldn't go to school unless we had a vaccination. You were met, did you have this?
Yeah, I had to have it on my shoulder. And
so, continue to be together. What in the hell was that?
well, no, let's do this. Because you know, this is really great. We just wanted to talk to you and kind of experience stuff. But it's just so much.
We had the attitude as exemplified by people like your granddad that we shall overcome. We didn't have the song, but we had the attitude, and we saw the examples of our talented young people, not just male. I'm trying to think of the dancers.
Yeah.
Tap dancers.
Yeah, Catherine Dunham.
Nicholas Brothers.
Honey Coles, and, you know.
Nicholas Brothers?
Huh?
Nicholas Brothers?
Nicholas Brothers.
I'm just trying to think of.
But Chicago, yeah, there was quite a bit.
Well, we just had that as an example because they were so talented. And your granddad was one of those that the white liberals would bring them into their areas, particularly, to prove that race does not matter in terms of talent and ability.
Because and then a lot of them could cross that bridge in the talent. Yeah.
So that was you. Now, for young African American, we, I guess, had sports and music. feel that nobody else could play like Louis Armstrong.
Sax.
So, and he could play that horn before he learned to read the music. His wife, Chicago wife, Lil Armstrong, taught him how to read the music. Again, I'm talking from experience, not just read about it. And baseball, and basketball, and football. Look back into the period that we're talking about, and see what happened with those people. Now, one of the things that you may help these youngsters, that you, particularly the black one, is your granddad and people like him also learned how to bullshit. That opened the door. They learned how to do that.
Okay.
And that's universal. It's not just racial. That's universal. So we would come together on occasions and dances, there's a Savoy and the Humbug, we would come together and laugh about how we deal with the monkeys.
I love it.
But we're back home now, so we can be natural.
Wow.
So that's one of the, after you write the book and teach the teachers, that the process by which this art, this talent, helped to break the barriers in the world that your granddad did, was also because he did learn how to bullshit. You don't have to use that language.
No, but I mean, that's the language that we understand. You know, everybody, you know, seems like black people, even Muhammad Ali, when he came up with his rhymes, you know, and his jargon, how he did with how Cosell and everybody, he could always float. And I think that always worked for black people.
That's the social cultural style that those people who made it into the bigger world used to open the door so that they could be seen. And having the talent and ability. Now, I, again, know because I learned very early what to do. Now, this small apartment and all, I learned what my daddy, who was a black nationalist, and many of the artists, including your granddad, who was what do we call him? Anyway, they look back at their heritage, their African side of their life, and they respected it. And so they could take the psychological and social ability, because they were going to break the barrier this hunky is gonna need me. Get his goal. His or her goal. Because I have a talent, ability, not writing it down, but feeling of confidence. And as my daddy, who was a black nationalist, you heard of Marcus Garvey? My daddy was a Garveyite, even though his mama and daddy were slaves. And he said to my mama one day, my mama was an integrationist. My daddy was, but he learned how, when he left the South, how to bullshit to get a job at the stockyards and the steel mill, so he could send his children to school. My daddy said, I was, was that weak? Those were in the days that I'm talking. Matty, pay the rent, get plenty of food, and laughingly, ha ha ha, get plenty of toilet paper. And your granddad was in that kind of category. He could be independent because he had the confidence and the talent. Days of those years, who would have believed that a Negro, a nigger, would be able to, a young nigga would be able to be downtown in the museum being given the kind of opening that he did. But he was independent, so he could wait, if necessary, until someone would buy his talent.
Wow. I think that is great, and I think we're going to end on that. I just want to ask you, because I'm perplexed as a young man, which I consider I'm getting a little older, in my 60s. My son is 40. With these kids getting killed every day in this reality, when will it stop? Or what will it take for them to stop? Or will it ever stop? Because I think yesterday, a baby got shot that was 1 month old. And then every day, I know you don't probably listen to the news every day, but it's just depressing for us blacks trying to do right.
Again, your granddad was a pacifist, though he served in war. I think he served in World War II. Peace is important, and the acquisition of weapons to disturb that peace is not acceptable. And even though I was in World War II, 4 battle stars, American battle star in my unit, and the French Croix de Guerre. War is organized insanity. And I can detail that. But who gets the weapons? Where do anyone, youngsters, gangsters, get those weapons? Who is the beneficiary of the purchase of guns? And that is another part of what those of us in my generation, even though we were drafted and went into World War II, and some of us didn't, and some of our examples, older examples, refused. They were pacifists. And many artists were white and black. And so, why does anyone need a gun? Guns are made to shoot something. And generally now, they're used to shoot people more than necessary. And so, control of those weapons, control of the distribution is now, and again, your granddad, he would be a part of the pacifistic part of behavior, even though he may have been in the army, as some of us were. It is complicated, but art, the kind of art that your granddad used to break the barriers of segregation, is one way in which we can bring, we can have peace on earth and goodwill to all human beings. And that is an attitude that artists like your dad, Carl Cotton, use to cross racial, social, all those barriers, so that he could transfer his attitude about humanity to others. Now, you know, we say animals are creatures too, but he didn't do the animals. He simply glorified their existence, so that when we look at this stuff, whatever the animal having, we imagined what this creature was doing before he or she was stuck. So I hope that that my conversation has not been too boring.
We want to thank you, and we're going to end it on that note, and I'm going to get in the picture with Mr. Black. I'm going to let you get in one, too. Sit next to...
I need to zoom out. Can you help me?
You need to zoom out.
Yeah, I hit zoom in.
Okay. Yeah, I was born and raised here, and messed it up. Okay, there you go.
On the south side, my mother's she was born in Gary.
Oh, she was born in Gary.
Yeah.
Oh.
Hello to everybody. This is Timuel Black, iconic, legendary friend of my grandfather, Carl Cotton. I'm named after Carl, too, so I'm Carl. But we want to thank you for this interview, and we're going to put you in the book and have hopefully get it printed out real soon. And we want to thank everybody. But this is a historian, and he knows a lot about everything.
So, particularly about Carl Cotton.
Thank you. You want a picture with him too? We're gonna take a couple pictures, but I want to get in the video since you look so good. Got on a new outfit.
Has this been worth your time?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Oh yes.
This has been an honor.
Yeah.
Mr. Black.
So
Thank you for sharing everything that you shared with us.
I feel a responsibility to carry my history, which is the history of people like Carl Cotton, forward to, on a positive note, to encourage you young people.
We're encouraged.
So,
we are. Thank you so much.